Salud familia, welcome to another session of Social Media Marketing Day 2020. Today we have Shannon. Shannon, we connected through LinkedIn and I was extremely impressed. Every people that reach out on LinkedIn, the first thing that they do typically, they pitch you. But Shannon sent a beautiful video introducing herself, caught my attention. I looked her profile and I asked her to be here and she said yes. So without further ado, Shannon, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm even doing more fantastic because I'm talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Shannon, for those that are meeting you for the first time, do you mind giving them a little bit of introduction, who you are, what is that you do?
Sure. So I'm a virtual and live speaker and author, and my platform usually centers around LGBTQ plus inclusion in the workplace. I'm also certified with the John Maxwell team on servant-based leadership. So those are the things that I'm really passionate about and I love talking about. So I'm happy to be here with you today, Angel.
Thank you. Of course, this is social media, and I want to talk to you about the LGBTQ plus and the inclusion. But let's start with you because hey, you're here. Tell me more about the virtual speaking. How you got into that?
COVID.
COVID
In a word,
changed
yes,
most people's lives and businesses.
yes, and all the live in person speaking events were canceled, and I didn't want my voice to be canceled. So I enrolled in a class on virtual speaking, how to set up everything, how to get virtual speaking gigs, and I've been fortunate to do that. And, I want to grow my business model more in that direction so I can be home with my wife more, not have to travel so much. And so it's worked out for me.
You know, freedom to have control over your schedule is something that I, is beautiful.
It
It's
is
beautiful.
beautiful. I
It is.
love being home.
It is beautiful. But it shows you said I pay for some virtual classes, things like that, to how to become a better speaker. It shows that you invested in yourself, and that's why your profile is shiny. You are attracting people. You are attracting the right people. That's the best part. So tell me a little bit more about how you. I know you mentioned you're gay, but how you stumble upon on this topic in particular, inclusion in the workplace. It was a personal experience, or this is something that you say I'm going to study and I'm going down that route?
Well, I didn't originally plan to be like a gay spokesperson, you know, but I've worked in organizations where I couldn't be out and it felt horrible. And I've worked in organizations where I can be out and it feels wonderful. I'm also a clinical nurse educator. And once I started talking about, in particular, transgender issues and just LGBT in general, I realized that my colleagues knew nothing about this. So I started doing some research and I found that the average healthcare professional receives about 2 hours of education in this. Now, I went to college for my bachelor's for 4 years. I went another 3 years for my master's. No classes, no required classes in this. So when I saw this void and I started speaking at conferences, and then I would have people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, I know nothing about this. Can you come?" That's what made me think along a business model. And that's when I started my consulting company because there was a real void. And being a person of gay experience, why not me? Talk about it. So,
Agree, 100%. But let me ask you, Shannon, um, do you think people approach you because you were talking about it, because you were gay, or for something else? Because I think people, earlier, well, in our previous conversation, you mentioned something that caught my attention, and I was discussing it with my wife. It's like people want to know, but they don't want to offend.
right. They don't know how to ask. They're kind of curious, but they don't want to, say the wrong thing. And so they just don't say anything. I was talking to my cousin a few weeks ago, and she's in California, and she was in cosmetology. And she said, I had a lot of transgender students, and they would tell me everything about them. And she said, I would just sit there and nod my head because I didn't know what to say, And I thought, that's the problem. So my mission is to teach people how to communicate with this population. It's not that hard.
When it comes to social media, what do you see often that is wrong on social media?
Well, my primary platform is LinkedIn. And you know what I actually noticed today? So I've been doing a series because it's Pride Month, right? I've been doing a series every day, a little bit of nuggets about LGBT pride. And when I do post about this, I'll get the likes, but I won't get so many comments. But when I post about leadership or kindness or, valuing other people, I get more comments. So
This is
go ahead.
something that I noticed as well.
Yeah.
And somebody told me that people don't like to look stupid on social media, and that's why you don't see comments on topics like that. But I haven't taken the time to actually survey and validate that. But that's I experienced the same thing you experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of put two and two together today, and I was like, oh. And then what's really interesting, since I've been on this platform, like really heavily into this platform since July, I've had so many trans people come out to me on the platform. I've had so many gay people from all over the world saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Can you call me by my female name? No one knows at my job." This happens on a weekly basis. Or they'll say something like, "Oh, there's something about me that you'd probably be surprised about," and I kind of know, where the conversation is going.
Le-
So they don't go ahead.
your content is providing value, which is key, is why probably you're gaining so much traction. And when I see people posting and they don't gain traction, it's because they don't provide value, but you are providing value. So here is the interesting question. Now, as a person in the LGBTQ community, do you how we are all conscious. People put labels on other people, and we judge other people even if we don't want to admit it out loud. When you were approaching social media for your business, did you hesitate for a second, or you said, "This is me, like me or not," or what was your approach?
No, I hesitated. I was afraid to be my true self, to be completely honest. I was afraid to come out on the platform. I was afraid what people might think, what people might say. I was afraid of haters. And I've gotten some, of course. But once I did, like, really become my true, authentic self on the platform, that's when my business took off. Because people are like, "Oh my God, you're talking about something that I've always wanted to know about. I didn't know trans people had their own flag. Oh, I didn't know that's what the letter stood for." And it's opening up some dialogue. And all I really want to do is create some awareness around this. I'm not trying to convert anyone. I just want to alert everyone. And the alert is, we're here. We're in your organizations. We're in your community. We're in your world. And we're not going anywhere. We're just going to continue to grow. So learn about us and show us some love. That's all we want. We just want to be accepted into society like everybody else. That's it. No special treatment.
Shannon, I know you have some presentations, some PowerPoint slides that you want to show. Before we jump into those, what make you? Let me ask you a couple more questions, if you don't mind. What makes you? What was the point that you said, "I am going to come as my true self"? Because this is not a challenge just for gay people or any. It's challenge for everybody. I noticed on social media that often we post, or companies, people post on social media based on to attract the ideal client, but often they are forced to create a persona that doesn't exist, that doesn't benefit them at all, and they don't get the result that they expect from social media. That's why, for me, it's so important to hear what you have to say. Like, what was the day? What happened that you say, this is, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be Shannon, and like it or not.
Well, me and my wife were in Florida, and I just made a decision that I was going to do videos on LinkedIn. So I went on the balcony and I recorded a video about leadership. And I was doing that for a while. But I don't think I really had like a day where I said, I'm going to come out on LinkedIn. I just started like slowly, you know, into the baby pool, into the 3 feet and then the 5 feet. And I started to see that this is something that people who were interested in it, you know. And then one day I was like, you know what? This is I'm just going to be myself and mention I'm gay, maybe in a video, maybe not. Mention my wife, maybe so, maybe not. I'll say stuff like as part of this community. And if you look at my profile, you see flags all over it. So it's not hard to, figure it out. But I've been very comfortable with doing this, but I don't see a lot of people doing it. Actually, I don't see anybody else do it. I know I'm not the only one. I know that, but I don't really see that,
To be honest with you, maybe it's not because, maybe because prior to meeting you, it wasn't on my radar, but I honestly don't see a lot of people with sharing the similar message. So when you are, which is great for you because now you're, blue ocean, red ocean strategy. So when you are writing something for social media, what's your approach? Do you think twice before what you're going to share on social media, or you just hit publish and this is me?
I really don't give it much thought. I'll just say I'm going to talk about binary today and I'll record it and then I'll just post it. I don't really, sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to say. I just say something about that and I edit it, I add some music, and I post it.
For us that are in the other side, and we might have clients on social media, online, even in person, they are in the LGBTQ community. What are some advice? What are some tips? What are some things that we should say, don't say? Educate me.
Well, I think that it's important for us as being a part of this community, and I talk about this in the presentation, is that we know that you are gay friendly. That's the main thing. That makes us feel safe. We live in a heteronormative world. We're aware of that. We have no problem with that. It's always going to be like that. We live in a binary world. But just to know that we're safe if we come into your world, that's the main thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, last question. Well, I want to ask you, what do you mean about, is your organization proud? But I want to ask you, when it comes to the workplace, you mean inclusive. There's still a lot of, there's still in some businesses a culture that doesn't embrace the LGBTQ community. What are some things that you have done in the past to change people's minds, or what have you said in an organization, in a presentation, that click and change people's mind?
Well, I think the main thing is just to start the dialogue, because you can't legislate people's hearts no matter what position they hold. So if you start the dialogue and create some awareness around it, eventually most people come around. Not everybody. I go and I do trainings all over, and I'll have people come in and say, I don't want to learn about this. I don't believe in this. This is against my religion. So I'm kind of used to that. And I just say, okay, that's fine. All I'm asking today is to give me 45 minutes of your undivided attention. And then you can walk out of here and think whatever you want to think. You can think the same thing you thought when you first walked in here. But at least now you're going to know a little bit more. And then what ends up happening is they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. oh, this is so, oh, and then there you have the transformation. And that's what gets me like excited and, full of joy and so passionate about what I do.
In that note, let's share your slides.
If I were to walk into your organization right now, would I have one drink and leave because I'm so bored? Or would I stay for dinner? That's the question, really. Would I stay for dinner? Would I feel comfortable enough to stay for dinner? In other words, is your organization proud? How does it look in your organization? Would I feel welcome there? Is there anything as an LGBT person that would make me feel affirmed and really make me want to stay for dinner? Because that's how we want to feel as part of this population. I am a gay female. I've been married to my wife for 21 years. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. So, is your organization proud? And let's take this one step further and ask ourselves, is your social media organization proud? In other words, if you're on social media, would I feel comfortable connecting with you as a gay person? Because a lot of times when you go to organizations and when you look at accounts on social media, this is what we see: pretty much nothing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So you may be wondering who I am. I'm a clinical nurse educator. I'm master's prepared, and I've got all those certifications and stuff. Not that important, but I just wanted you to know a little bit more about me and what I do. I've been working in this population for many years and actually love what I do. So I want to do a little bit of a knowledge check and see if you all know about this flag here. But these flag colors mean something. The black is for Black people, the brown for brown people, the red stands for life, and the orange stands for healing, the yellow stands for sun, the green stands for nature, the blue stands for harmony, and the purple stands for spirit. Now, the first flag I showed earlier didn't have the top two colors up there. So these colors have been added as of like around 2017 and to represent brown and Black people of color. But there's really like a lot of flags that represent this population. So these are some of them, certainly not all of them. But this flag here sort of encompasses all of them. It encompasses the trans colors and the regular pride colors. The black here represents people that we have lost. The brown color represents people like with HIV, marginalized populations. If you all were anywhere around last year, especially in New York, we had Pride, and it was Stonewall Pride. And, I felt so proud during this time because all of these organizations had this beautiful insignia. And, one of my buddies just sent me a picture in front of Louis Vuitton. There's a huge rainbow on the building. It's just so, so beautiful. So I love what organizations are doing when it comes around this time for Pride. And it makes me, as a gay person, want to do business with these companies. So you know how like if you go to the store and you see this sign, right? USDA organic. Like when my wife shops, she only picks things that has this insignia on it. Because she trusts this insignia. She trusts that it's been verified, it's been tested, and she believes in this brand. So when we're driving down Anytown Road, USA, and we're in our convertible and we're trying to figure out where we want to stop and eat or where we want to stop and shop or where we want to stay, we're looking for imagery that affirms us. A little small flag in the window, something on the website that says, hey, you're safe here. Because for us, it's all about feeling safe. We live in a heteronormative society and we know that. We accept that. That's not going to change. We get that. But when we see organizations that have flags, it lets us know that we're welcome there. I was going through the mail the other day and I got this pamphlet a little bit too early, I might add. Please join our retirement community. It's quite a while off before I'm going to do that. But you see that arrow there? You see that flag there? Now, what do you think if I was shopping for a retirement community? I would probably look at this organization because I would feel affirmed here. I would feel safe here. So when you're like, doing your profile, or if you're in organizations, just think about what you can do to show that you're an ally for us, because this is what we look for. It's like the magic bullet for us, and you just have to be kind of cognizant that you don't want to just put up a shingle and call it a day, because that's certainly going to bite you in the butt, right? And you're going to have a headache after that, because invariably you just stick up a flag, and then uh, you know then someone comes into your organization and says, "Oh, you guys are, your pride. I see your pride flag. That's fantastic." And then the secretary goes, "Oh, that. Oh, I was wondering what that was. They just put that up here last week." So I just realized that I don't have from current slide. All right, let me just make sure I'm here. Good. All right. All right. All right.
And you're good.
All right, so that little flag right there for us indicates that it's a safe place to be. But you can't just like hang out a shingle and call it a day, because that's eventually going to get you a nice bite, right? And end up with a headache. You've really got to think this through, especially if you work in an HR department in an organization. You want to make sure that people understand what that means, because we have found that the cost of people being discriminated against in organizations can be upwards of $64 billion. And people leave organizations where they don't feel affirmed. I was in an organization where I felt like I had to be in the closet, and after 2 years I left. I didn't feel like I could be my true self. So it's really important that we feel affirmed there. So I want to talk a little bit about what these letters mean, because a lot of people ask questions about it, and the acronym does change over time. Just very briefly, L stands for lesbians, two women who are attracted to each other. That's what I am. I pretty much consider myself to say gay. I like that word better. That's usually two guys together. And then we have bisexual people who can be attracted to male or female or trans, or it doesn't have to be one person. They don't have to pick. They're not confused. This is just who they happen to love at the time. And then we have transgender, or trans for short. These are individuals who either disagree with their assigned sex at birth, their assigned anatomical sex at birth, or it's an umbrella term for people who feel like they don't fit into the standard of male or female, and also for cross-dressers. And then we have queer, which means queer or question. That's no longer a pejorative term. It's actually been reclaimed as a positive term, and these are individuals who can be attracted to anyone. These letters can go on and on and on. QIAP, intersex, asexual, pansexual. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but just to know that this does exist. So this is the flag that I was talking about before, with the additional colors on it. You may start to see that. I'm sure everybody knows what this flag is. But do you know what this flag is? This is the transgender flag. And yes, trans people have their own flag, because sometimes they feel like the pride flag doesn't really represent them. So the blue is for a male, the pink for female, and then the white for people who may be in the process of transitioning or questioning. These are the symbols for within this community. These two girls together, two guys together. This is the heterosexual symbol, male and female together. And then this is the symbol for transgender. And this is really interesting, because a lot of people don't really know what these symbols mean. So I like to kind of share these as we go along. Now, if you're in an organization, I'm really wanting to know, who are you hiring? Are you hiring people that look just like you, or are you hiring people that may not look like you? And this is something to really think about and look at. Like on your social media, are you only connecting with people who look like you, or are you connecting with people who don't look like you? Just think about that. The next time you get a connection request or you decide that you want to connect with someone, ask yourself that question. Because, these individuals have an awful lot to offer if they're given the opportunity to do so. I know you've seen in organizations where people bring in people like, especially like, let's say, senior leadership or, executive level positions, and the person they bring in looks just like them. And that person brings in someone, they look just like them. This this type of behavior leaves out people like this who have so much more to offer. It's been proven, Forbes did a study on this, and they have said that diverse teams make better decisions up to 87% of the time. Now, I don't know about you, but I would like to make better decisions 87% of the time. So really think about this. If you're in a position to hire someone, you're in a position to be friends on. When I first met my wife, you want to meet, your friends. When I took her out to meet friends, and we came back, and I was like, so, you think they would think? She was like, oh, everybody was nice, Shannon. She said, but everybody looked just like you. Like, why don't you try being friends with people who look different than you do? And I took an inventory of my friends, and she was absolutely right. We were around the same age, we were around the same race, we were around the same size, we were kind of in the same industry. There was no diversity in my friends. And I can say now that I've really made a conscious effort to change this. One of my best friends is 20 years my junior, one is 20 years my senior, and all type of orientations and all type of races from all countries. And I am so happy. And I've never felt more engaged and learned so much than being friends with people like this. But let's look at the states and see like where the gayest states are. This kind of surprises me sometimes. I mean, we know California, we know New York, but if you go a little bit more blue, I mean, look at Texas and some of the other states there. My state, if you can see it, number 28 right there. That's where I'm from, Tennessee. Not very gay friendly, but it's getting better. There's quite a bit of blue there, so not horrible. But I think that's very interesting to see where gay people live. This is what's interesting to me when you look at this genderbread person, because a lot of people get this confused when we talk about attraction, orientation, expression. We have our anatomical sex, right? And that's what we were born with at birth. And then we have who we are attracted to in our heart. Like I'm attracted to my wife, right? And then we have our identity in our brains of how we feel inside. And then all of that together makes up our expression. So Facebook's list over 76 different type of gender expressions. It's probably even higher now. When I first started doing this talk, it was like 30 something. And I was convinced I was going to, learn all of these words. But I pulled up the ones that are used like the most often. Like you see this one cisgender, or you'll see cis for short. This is like I'm cisgender. I agree with what I was born. I agree with what I was assigned at birth. And then the expression, how you express yourself, present yourself to the world. We have our binary system, which is male or female. Gender fluid. People can switch back and forth between male and female. And what I want you all to understand is that these individuals aren't confused. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't have a mental illness. And the reason why I say that is because people ask me that a lot. So we also have gender marker, which is what you were born with at birth. You have intersex here. These are individuals who were born with either both sex characteristics, maybe one is more pronounced than the other. Sometimes people don't know they're intersex until they go into puberty or start to think about conceiving. Um, and what's interesting about this that I really want you all to think about is that, the doctor and the parents shouldn't decide the sex of the child. A lot of times surgeries are performed at birth. They'll either remove something, take something out, and then the child grows up feeling the other gender and doesn't know why, and maybe it's a big secret. So it's always best to just let the child decide. And if you think there's a trans movement going on, there's definitely going to be an intersex movement. People aren't hiding this so much like they did before. But what I really want you to look at when you think about gender identity, there's so many different words, but I really want you to concentrate on this one, which is binary, which either a person identifies as a woman or a man. And then we have non binary. And these are people who don't feel like they fit into that male or female box. Again, there's nothing wrong with these individuals. So there's the two choices, male or female. When you go back to work or you look at an intake form, I want you to look and see most of the time, that's all you're going to see, male or female. But there's a big group of people right inside these two boxes. And that's what we were just talking about. This is how an intake form could look: male, man, female, woman, trans male, trans woman, genderqueer. You don't really have to go down the whole spectrum, but just to have a little bit more of a choice than just male or female. Because there's so many different varieties here. You got all these different words, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want you to know that these words actually exist, specifically among the younger population, people in high school and college. They know this is like a whole new language. But if you think about, like, back in the day, this was pretty much all you had to choose from, right? Black or African, Caucasian. You may have seen an other, and that was it. I mean, think about years ago, I'm probably dating myself, when you were just making a phone call. You just made a phone call. Now you got to press your language. You go to the ATM, you got to press your language, and now look at this form. Now you have all these things to choose from instead of just one or two. So that's the same thing that can be on an intake form, so that people feel more inclusive who may not feel like they fit into the male and the female. Here's the trans flag again. Here's the trans symbol again. All right, so one thing I want everyone to understand is that being trans doesn't mean you're gay. When I first started working with this population about 4 years ago, I actually thought that being trans meant you were gay, but it doesn't. Trans people can be of any orientation. So just remember that going forward. And don't assume anything, because most of the time, for me, I'm usually wrong. So it's best not to assume. All right. These are people who have transitioned. So the thing to do, if you don't know, instead of assuming and maybe making a mistake, is just ask. Say, hey, what's your pronoun? And it's not preferred. Someone say preferred pronoun. It's not preferred. It's the pronoun that that person feels that they should be called. And that's what you want to do, is you want to respect them. Some other best practices, like what's your gender, especially if you're working in an HR department. These are questions that you would ask. What's your gender marker at birth? How do you identify? Those are all legitimate questions that you can ask. But be aware of your language and don't make any assumptions about someone's gender based on how their gender expression is, or maybe their voice. Their voice may not align with their gender, their outward expression, or what's on their ID. And it's always best to just ask instead of guessing, like, how would you like for me to refer to you? And, what pronouns do you use? And how would you like to be addressed? This is really important, and I can't stress this enough. If you don't remember anything else about what I speak about today, remember about asking about pronouns. I know for some people, this is a new question, not something that you're used to asking. But you really want to avoid misgendering someone. It's very hurtful. It's very disrespectful. You want to avoid offensive words, and you want to avoid questions that really are unhelpful. I always say, don't ask anybody a question you wouldn't want someone to ask you, because, you know, misgendering someone can really, especially like a trans person, can really cause them a lot of pain. You probably will make the mistake, because I certainly have made the mistake before, more than once, and this is the industry that I work in on a daily basis. But the thing to do is just apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misgender you, or I didn't mean to be disrespectful. And then keep it moving. Keep it moving. Don't dwell on the misgendering, because that person is not there to comfort you for your mistake. Just say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misgender you, and keep the conversation going. Trust me, they don't want to talk about that the whole time. I'm wondering if you all know about Walgreens, who have now added gender neutral bathrooms to all 3,000 stores. Guess where I shop when I go to the grocery store? I mean, when I go to the drugstore, I go to Walgreens. Very affirming. So I just want you all to know that, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes self reflection. And just the fact that you're here today and you're listening tells me a lot about you. It tells me that you're interested in this. And, when I first started working in this industry, there were a lot of obstacles, and you're going to have leadership and staff that aren't going to be very keen on this, because people, often fear what they don't understand. And you have resistance and you have unconscious bias. And just know that those are some of the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. And you got to just take it slow. Some tips that you can do is collect SOGI data, and I go into this in more detail in my trainings, but big companies ask this. It's sexual orientation, gender identity data. Your forms can go beyond the male and female. You can show support for underrepresented communities, trans people. You can form employee resource groups. If you don't ask the questions in your organizations, you're never going to know. Especially in a time like this, with the racial injustices that have been occurring for so long, organizations are starting to ask, and that's a good sign. So what I've learned is that I just had to suspend the idea of knowing how, and really believe that I really think that most people want to do the right thing. And if you kind of don't know, reach out to experts. You can certainly reach out to me, be a constant learner. And, everyone might not understand why you're doing what you're doing, but eventually they come around. Hopefully, I'm seeing more and more people on social media listing their pronouns. For me, just seeing that, when I see that on someone's pronoun, I immediately connect with that person. Because all we want, really, just like everyone else, is to be allowed to be the best expression of ourselves. That's what everyone wants. I want to thank you for listening today, for joining this webinar, and I hope that you all will reach out to me. These are my contact information. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. You can DM me on LinkedIn, and you'll get a response right away. Go onto my website, and I will give you a free download of my book that's going to be coming out.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you a lot. I didn't know a lot of the things that you mentioned. Not talking about colors, what the letters means, but also more important, to ask, to be a human being. Because how would you like to be called? How do you identify? It's just respect.
Yes.
Respect doesn't have to be earned. Respect is something that is given until somebody disrespects you. But it's just being a good human being, and you couldn't said it better. It was excellent. Thank you, Shannon.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope it brought some value to people, got people to thinking a little bit more, and not being afraid to ask that question. It's really generational, that question. If you talk to young kids and people in college, they ask the question all the time. But I hope it brought some information and value to people.
Again, Shannon, where can people find you?
Well, I have my website, whittingtonconsulting.com, And then you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on that platform like crazy. That's how we met. I love LinkedIn. So just DM me there, send a connection request, and I'll connect with you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Hopefully, we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. It's been a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, Angel.